Hello, and welcome to the Roost News, the place for all things volunteer. I'm excited. Today we have a special guest with us today, Elaine Werner. She is with AARP Connecticut, and she is the Public Outreach and Volunteer Engagement staff. And we thank you, Elaine, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted.
Yes, well, we have to get started because so much information, so many things going on in the state of Connecticut. So I'm excited. So listen up. The first question, Elaine, is because you are doing so much in the state of Connecticut, do you have a leadership team or do you have just individual volunteers that you call and say, need help today? How do you go about implementing all of your programs with volunteers?
Well, we answer to your first part, both. We have some people that they were leaders all their life before they retired, and they don't want to do that anymore. They might, and now they have an opportunity given so much virtual activity that we're doing, they can work behind the scenes. But yes, we do have volunteer leaders. We have actually, Lillian, 7 regional impact teams in the state of Connecticut.
Wow.
And each of those teams has a group of volunteers that are the lead volunteers for that. We have lead volunteers for different program areas like financial security, our Fraud Watch Network, Livable Community, Disrupt Aging. So just about every one of our program areas for ARP, we also have a lead. So volunteers know they can aspire to that. That's always in the works. And they can also be a lead virtually or, where they're presenting, they're hosting, just like you're doing virtually now. Or they can be a lead in the front of the room at an event. And then if they don't want to be in the front, they don't want to be a leader, they can do all the behind the scenes stuff as well.
Wonderful. Well, I know prior to your coming to AARP, you may have had another job or this was your aspiration to be a part of the AARP team. Give a little background about you.
Well, thank you. Actually, I had a really nice segue. I worked for the United States Senate, wow. And my area of expertise, I like to say, hopefully, or I developed that, was on older American issues. So I had an opportunity to speak with constituents all over the state of Connecticut and help them. I was a liaison for a United States Senator. And of course, when you work with somebody at that level, you do have the power of the office and the power to make a difference. So it was a very impactful time in my life. I was helping to change people's lives for the better, older Americans in Connecticut, by the power of my boss, a United States Senator. And what happened, Lillian, the folks from ARP, members of the Executive Council, staff member, and others used to visit me in the Connecticut State Senate office, United States Senate office, I should say, and I got to know the people from ARP. So when my boss, the senator, retired, there was commensurately a position open, thankfully, at ARP Connecticut. I knew the state director. I had even helped her with some constituent issues, which was great. And I had an opportunity to interview for the position. And here I am 10 years later.
Well, what a wonderful transition and experience. So I'm sure they were not just wonderfully happy, as I may say, but they were excited about having you as a staff member because of your expertise coming from your prior position. So let's get back to your volunteers. Okay, there were 2 words that I read that were of interest to me: vetting and dating. Now, does that mean that I have to set up a time to come and meet with you or set up a date with you? What is that all about, vetting and dating, and how did those 2 terms come about?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question. I love those 2 terms, especially the dating one. So, if we all think back on our personal lives, going into relationships, if you, or at least I'm personally a believer in this, the longer the engagement period, the better the marriage or relationship. So we apply that philosophy, and I want to give a shout out to OVE employee at ARP Connecticut, Kathy Conn, because she put that bee in my bonnet with dating a long time ago and actually brought some people in as a training to speak about that. So what we do have a vetting process and then the dating follows. So what is the vetting? So let's say somebody comes to us, and they come to us in a variety of ways. interested in volunteering. The first way I vet, and that is to vetting for us, Lillian, is getting to know the potential volunteer from whence they came. What was their career? Are they still working? What are they looking for? Where do they live in the state? Do they want to be an advocate? Are they interested in meeting with their elected officials with advocacy, or they're not interested in that altogether? Do they want to do what they did in their career, or they, some of them say, nope, don't want to do any of that. I want to do something completely different. So I always, and I stress this and recommend it, do a phone interview first. And I say to the potential volunteer, tell me about yourself. I'm going to ask you some questions as you go. And I interrupt them as they're talking to ask questions. We also cover their educational background, not only their career, but I also ask them what they like to do in their free time. Are they travelers? Or do they exercise? Do they whatever? And I'm taking copious notes, of course, during this whole process, which I share later with my colleagues and other people. And this helps guide me, Lillian, as to what might be a good fit or not for this particular person. If I'm getting a good vibe about the whole thing, the next step is the dating. And we say, now explore. Let's get to know each other. And the way you do this, and we give them a couple of websites. We give them our event website, which is both local Connecticut events. I want them to see our volunteers in action, see if they can image, themselves in that position, and national events. We give them links for videos that we have produced. But I always want them to try to see things where they see our volunteers in action so they can visualize what it's like to volunteer. We give them a couple of weeks to do that. I then typically make a date for me to circle back after they've done it. We discuss what they found out. If they haven't done their homework, well, maybe they're not interested. I don't know, or maybe something came up. We deal with whatever we have. But the dating is really means, Lillian, the exploratory period, get to know each other. It's their free time. Most of them are retired. We want to make sure it's a good fit.
Wonderful. Wow. Well, sometimes in dating, Emily, you take a gift. Do you take a gift to your date, or do you wait and give gifts at a later time?
A gift, did you say GIFT?
Yes,
Yeah.
a gift. Do you take a gift to that first date, second date, or do you just wait and let them actually start their volunteer opportunities and then give them possibly a gift, an incentive? Do you have anything like that going on?
Well, an incentive would be, for example, we just appointed 2 new volunteers recently. And we'll talk, if you care to, about a virtual interview or a face-to-face interview we do as the next step. But we definitely lead them. We want to keep them involved. So we have monthly volunteer meetings. We give them the link to register for that. I mentioned before our regional impact teams. So we hook them up with back to the volunteer leads. We hook them up to the volunteer leads for that team. And you know what the gift would be, I would say, Lillian, good question, would be their buddy. We all new appointees get a volunteer buddy. And that person is someone that would probably share their program area interests. They might even be on the same regional impact team. And the buddy just every 2 months or so picks up the phone, gives them a call, asks them if there's any questions or whatever. We're always here as staff for them, but that's a peer-to-peer. So I would say that's a gift. And once they're appointed as a volunteer, there's still some more steps. The big gift is they get a big red AARP box full of swag. Wow. So they can wear their AARP t-shirt, hat, tie, scarf, etc.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So I know, for the past, what has it been, a little over 2 years, we've been in the pandemic and we could not do in-person meetings. And right now we're slowly getting back to in-person meetings. So how did you keep up with your volunteers during the pandemic?
We immediately, I'll never forget this. It was March 13th, 2020, when we all went home and didn't come back for 2 years or see our volunteers for 2+ years. And we did what I think other successful businesses did, nonprofits did. We morphed, we pivoted. I use the word swivel. I was trying to come up with a new word. And a goodly amount of our volunteers, Elaine, I am happy to say, came right along with us. And did we all need to learn new skills? Of course, I'm sure you can relate to that as well. And we provided both locally and the national office as well, tech skills to bring them along.
Excellent.
Our Associate State Director for Community Outreach has a fabulous training example for volunteers that wanted to learn tech skills, run a chat in a virtual event, do the Q&A, be a host, do the PowerPoint. So we didn't skip a beat. We moved right into that
Excellent.
virtual arena.
Wonderful. Well, the other question that I had after reading so much about Connecticut and the great things that you all are doing in the state, you have a TV show or a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we started this 5 years ago, and I'm again proud to say a volunteer got it off the ground.
Okay.
You may know Marilyn Diaz. She's part
Yes.
of a national volunteer team. Well, the community that she lived in, the public access TV station was right down the street. And in order to produce a show there, you needed somebody from the community. And she was there. And she, along with our state director, had a concept of us doing a program. Because I also had a background prior to my time with the Senate in public television and public radio.
Wonderful.
And I was on staff. They asked if I would like to do it. And of course, I was going to be a yes on that. So we produce, Lillian, a show monthly. In the 5 years, we have now produced 39 shows, I'm proud to say. We call it AARP Connecticut in Your Community. And many of the programs have volunteers as guests, also community partners, all different kinds of subjects that we do, our program areas. We did healthy cooking. We did one on how to get acclimated to Zoom, Fraud Watch Network, of course. And it's just been fun. And we always do a volunteer pitch. I've had people call me that have watched the program that want to volunteer. And it helps me keep my TV background going also. So I love it personally.
Wonderful. Well, talking about volunteers, what kind of feedback have you received from volunteers, information that they have given you as to how they want to be involved, or thanking you for keeping the ball rolling during the pandemic? Any feedback from your volunteers?
You know where I get a lot of feedback is when this just happened yesterday. I was partnering with Marilyn Diaz again in a volunteer virtual interview, which by the way is the next step after the volunteer is explored and we're still interested.
Okay.
And I bring a volunteer in to paint a picture of what volunteering is all about. But I hear then, Lillian, our volunteers painting the picture and telling the potential volunteer what volunteering at AARP Connecticut is like. And I am, without being subjective, it always warms my heart that we really get a favorable response in telling the potential volunteer that how well AARP volunteers are treated, the perks, the benefits of being a volunteer, that we are flexible as to what the volunteer wants to do. As I said earlier, we want everyone to be happy. It's their free time. So they can be an episodic volunteer. They can, if they love greeting people at movies for grownups, but they don't want to meet with their legislator, okay, we got a role for you. So, and we go to our volunteers all the time for information. Like we just help support legislation for financial security. And we have a whole volunteer team that's really mapping out how we're going to do the outreach to businesses and employees in Connecticut, and they're feeding that information back to our Associate State Director for Advocacy. So we're constantly looking to our volunteers to tell us what their communities need.
Wonderful. Well, we've talked a little bit about vetting and dating, incentives, and your TV show. What else would you like to share about AARP Connecticut?
Well, it's something another thing I recommend to everybody, because we believe our existing volunteers know what we need in a type of volunteer, the skills that we need. We established years ago, Lillian, a referral program.
Okay.
And what that is, if we have a volunteer that thinks somebody should be a volunteer with us, they send me the information, I do the vetting, they do the dating, all that we discussed.
Okay.
And if we appoint them, the volunteer referring them gets a $50 gift card from us. So it's like a bonus system, and we get some of our best volunteers through that. Another way that we get volunteers, we'll be using this again if you can see it that well, I'll try to hold it up to the camera there. This is called a Count Me In card. And what this is, it's of the moment. So again, it's sort of a referral. So if a volunteer is out, let's say hosting a table for us, and somebody comes by and they're intrigued by volunteerism, they have them fill out this card. There's a way for them to say what they're interested in. The opposite side has a description of our program areas. This comes right back to me, and I follow up with them. Again, if we appoint that volunteer, the person referring them gets the $50 bonus gift card. And I always recommend, if somebody's interested in volunteering, get to them right away. I just spoke with somebody the other day, and she said, I was so impressed. I put out feelers for a lot of other places for volunteering, but AARP called me within 24 hours. And actually we ended up appointing that person. There's two other things I would recommend. This is our volunteer brochure. I don't know how well you can see this, but we use this also at events. There's a tear off at the back. If people don't want to fill out a Count Me In card, they can mail it in. That's another way. And of course, our famous, this is the latest bulletin that I just got yesterday.
Yes.
Being a volunteer with AARP, that states have an opportunity to have a state page in there. And so typically at the end of the state page, I'll often raise my hand to our state director and say, can you put my name and phone number in there? Because we get volunteers from the articles. So that's very effective. And lastly, I would say, we do twice a year an email to a selected group of people that have either attended one or more of our events, or they've been involved in, or they've showed some interest in volunteering. We send out an email, no cost to this, right? An email about recruitment. And that's a very easy way that I highly recommend to get volunteers.
Okay, wonderful. Such innovative ideas and great information that you have shared about AARP Connecticut today. I know that individuals who are volunteers or state office staff may reach out to AARP Connecticut to get in-depth information or just additional information from the state of Connecticut. We thank you so much, Elaine, for joining us today. And I'll just come back one more time. Is there anything that you missed? I know you've got a lot going on, so it may be one other thing or two other things that have popped in your mind that you'd like to share. If not.
Well, other than to say thank you, I'm honored that you asked me to do this.
We thank you. Yes.
I appreciate that. And you and I both know that without our volunteers, we would not be able to do the breadth and depth of the work that we do. So they are the face of us. We have a strong brand, as you know, so that's why full circle, we do the vetting and dating process and take that very seriously.
Thank you. And that's a good note to end on. They are the face. We love our volunteers, and we thank all of our volunteers that are listening today, and we thank the staff also who are listening to this podcast. AARP Connecticut, Elaine Werner, you're the best. Until next time, the Roost News for all things volunteer.